There's also a shift in your perception of time when you're in that state. Suddenly your relationship with time becomes completely different.
So I'm
and
really
I don't
glad
know whether
that,
and I'm not like, it's easy to say it slows down or it speeds up. To me, it's neither. You're in this weird liminal state where it's almost like it doesn't exist. It's not a relevant like vector in your emotional experience.
I'm really glad you brought this up because one of my obsessions is time perception. And, having spent the last 20 years or so studying the visual system, what you start to realize is that space, meaning physical space, not outer space, but physical space around you and your time perception are absolutely linked. Mm-hmm. And when our focus is very narrow, time starts to feel thin sliced. So you're right. It's not that it's going fast or slow. It's that you're perceiving more events per unit time. So it's like a metronome that's going faster. Mm. When our gaze is dilated, so when we're relaxed, there's actually what happens is the pupil kind of relaxes a bit. It doesn't always get bigger or smaller, but what happens is when we're relaxed, so if you view a horizon, for instance, or you go into what's called panoramic vision, so even though I'm looking at you right now, I can dilate my gaze without moving my head or eyes, so I can see the corners of the room and the ceiling. I can see myself in the environment. When we do that, our perception of time broadens and we feel like we have more time. And what we're doing when we do that, focus versus defocus, as I call it, or focal vision versus panoramic vision, is you're toggling on and off the autonomic nervous system for alertness. You're turning on and off that norepinephrine circuit. And so it's conscious control over a brainstem circuit. And this is why I don't like the phrase autonomic, because that means automatic. It's a misnomer. The breathing, I can control my autonomic nervous system. I can breathe. I can control my autonomic nervous system. I can eat a big meal. I can control my autonomic nervous system. I can focus or defocus. And if you really look at the realm of high performance, what you start to realize is people who are very good at their respective sport or career or in the special operations community, what they do, are exceptionally good at turning on and off these systems. So they're highly functional at achieving their milestones, but they're not spending out extra energy. Because when you go into panoramic vision, you start to uncouple this space-time thing and you get some rest and relaxation. The way to think about this is, so we go back to duration, path, and outcome. That's the most stringent high-focus regime for the brain. The way to get better at duration, path, and outcome is to engage in activities that are low duration, path, and outcome, where your brain is not in modes of analyzing duration, path, and outcome. What's the one phase of our life when we're not thinking about duration, path, and outcome at all? Sleep. And so the reason why you can pull somebody's mind apart, their ability to think rationally and analyze duration, path, and outcome by sleep depriving them, is because sleep, despite all its neurochemical complexity, is really when we restore our ability to analyze duration, path, and outcome. Now you think about buds and you go, no wonder they sleep deprive them. They're trying to figure out who has the ability to control these mechanisms and who doesn't. Most people fail. So when I think about how to recover, I actually don't think about recovery as its own thing. I think about recovery as giving buoyancy or improving my ability to focus. So sleep is a turning off of these brain circuits that are thinking about what's happening next. So some people experience challenges in falling asleep. They need to learn how to turn off thinking. And there's actually a way to do this. We're doing a study on this now. It relates to hypnosis that would be fun to talk about. And we can, if you like. Yeah. The other thing is that just merely going into panoramic vision, say between a meeting, instead of looking at your phone, more focal vision, you're working hard on your book. Maybe you walk to the kitchen, just 2 seconds of what I call deliberate decompression, where you just kind of let your mind go broader, will allow you to reset your focus much more intensely when you return to that book, as opposed to if you had looked at your phone or engaged even in some other kind of deep duration, path, outcome type function of the brain. So when you start thinking about meditation, it's also valuable because a lot of meditation involves focusing on your breath. I actually think a lot of people are spending out this ability. They're working too hard in the activities designed to reset them. So the two ways to reset yourself in wakefulness.
Being just very adamant about my meditation practice.
That's right.
Because it's a letting go. It's not we're so programmed to like force ourselves to do things or to like dive in with intentionality. But so much of this is more elusive than that.
I think that we can all do ourselves a great service and perform much better in what we're doing by taking little micro recoveries in the form of dilating our gaze in between meetings, just for a second. Viewing a horizon is the best way to do it because it naturally brings the eyes into defocus. We're doing this in VR because we can control the visual environment completely. When you go into this defocus mode, you turn off that brainstem circuit, you're conserving norepinephrine for your next bout of focus and activity. Otherwise, you're spending it. And the brain doesn't care how you spend it. Doesn't care if it's on Instagram, doesn't care if it's watching the news. But learning how to defocus and then refocus very quickly can get you through a race that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to get through. It saves you energy and it builds energy.